Hello, good afternoon for those who joined early on. We still have a little bit of time. We'll just get started in a few minutes. I'll stay on mute until 4 p.m. and we'll get started at the time. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? This is Ram.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Great. We still have a couple of minutes. We'll get started soon. So can you do me a favor? So after the session is over, we'll email the presentation. And you also want to know which grade are your kids so that I can address accordingly. So in the chat, you will see an option for chat. And under that, there'll be private chat option where you can just send it to me. I'm signed in as Maths Academy. So if you can type your email address and your kid's name and grade, that'll be great. So that we will know who is there and we can send the presentation after it's over. And also I can address based on the grades. So just send it to the private chat. Are you able to find the private chat option? Chat, under chat, you just select basically first option is everyone, and there'll be another option where at the bottom you can select two. So enter your child's grade, name, and your email address. Those are the three things. Thank you, Aditya. Got it. For those who have just joined, hello, welcome. In the chat, there is an option for chat. Under that, select the private chat, which is basically select Maths Academy in the drop down there too, and enter your child's grade, name, and your email address. The grade will help me to address, know which grade range are attending, so I can address accordingly. And after the presentation, after the session is over, we'll also send you the presentation. There's still a few people joining. We'll give a minute or two and get started. Hey, for those who joined in the last couple of minutes, welcome. So I requested everyone, for those who just joined, to go to the chat, and under the chat, there is a private option where to select Maths Academy and type your kid's grade name and your email address. So the grades are to help with address appropriately, and we'll also email the presentation once we're done. Aditya, you're not able to hear me. Can others hear me? Can anybody hear me? One of them.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you too.
Okay. Aditya, can you probably drop off and join again? It is probably some browser issue or some session issue. Obviously, you wouldn't have heard that message, so text. Audio not clear. So Aditya, probably it is some local issue because most people are able to hear. All right, so let's get started. I think we're also doing the YouTube live. For anybody who missed, you can watch the, for anybody who joins later, they can watch on YouTube. All right, welcome everyone again to join on this Saturday afternoon. And we're living in very interesting times. We're all tied to our homes. Hopefully, those of you working from home remotely get a break today. Sometimes when you work from home, there is no boundary. You end up working pretty long hours continuously. Hopefully, you're getting a break in the weekend, spending time with the family. So can you all see my screen? It says test prep, SAT, PSAT, ACT. Can you see that? One of you type yes, that I'm assuming everybody, and I just switch the screen again. Let me keep the chat right in front of me. Okay. All right, everybody can see, perfect. Okay. So get the participant view. All right. Okay, for those of you just joined, welcome. And I requested everyone to type in the private chat, in the chat, at the bottom, there is a to select Maths Academy that will open a private option. Please type your child's grade, name, and your email address. Okay, those who got control over the pen, please do not write anything. I think there is an option to disable. I do that so that we don't distract anybody else. So you can't annotate. In the actual class, we use this tool for class as well, and it's an interactive class. Students can actually also annotate, but for today's session, we'll disable that to avoid distractions. If you have any questions, please do type into the chat. Please stay on mute. I think everybody is on mute right now. If you have any question, comment, please type into the chat box so that when 30 of us talk over each other, nobody can understand. So please just type your questions. You are welcome to ask questions anytime. You don't need to wait until the end. Some questions I may be addressing a little later, so I will say, otherwise I will address immediately, but you can ask anytime. All right. So what is the agenda today? Many of you, in fact, most of you look like, I can recognize one or two, but most of the others seem to be first time for the Maths Academy. So I'll very briefly talk about Maths Academy, not too much, because I know you're all most interested about the test preps, SAT, especially for SAT, ACT, and PSAT. So that's where I'll spend majority of the time. Then the next one we'll talk, first we'll talk about what are those tests, and most of you probably know what they are. Each of us know from a different perspective. You especially have a child who's already older child, went to college, etc. Probably you know pretty well. But for those who are the first timers, I'll talk a little bit about the test formats, what is the purpose, who uses them, how they use, etc. How are they scored? How do the tests look like in terms of the time it takes and the questions, etc. And the second half of the presentation, I'll talk about all the specific courses that we offer, the coaching methodology, who are the coaches, what are the schedules, what are the fees. Uh, some of you sent us emails over the last few weeks. I hope to address all those questions here. And if you have any follow-up questions, leave our email, which I think all of you have our email, our contact number, but you can contact us right after that. We'll be happy to address any further questions, but you can ask questions during the session itself too. So very quickly, uh, what is Maths Academy? Uh, our mission statement is embedded into this statement. One statement: bring the best out of every child. We believe that every child, every student has an infinite potential. And our goal is to help tap into that potential. Uh, and it's already exists in every kid. So uh, one of our mottos is from a gentleman called Plutarch, who lived almost 2,000 years back. Uh, he said, "Mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be ignited." And so absolutely true. Our goal is to help ignite that. And if you haven't read, there is a great book by a former president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. It's called The Ignited Minds. It's a great book. If you get a chance, please read that. And so we do a lot of activities. We conduct webinars, sometimes educational webinars. A week back, did a series of sessions for a week for the kids uh, on the beauty of math and some of the interesting to keep the kids engaged. Uh, Not so much about just teaching math, but more of beauty of math. Uh, so we conduct math contests, we do spelling bees, we conduct classes for a number of different subject areas, including SAT, ACT, and PSAT, but also for younger kids on math, English, science, coding, spelling, uh, and a variety of topics. And we do one-on-one classes as well on any subject for those who are interested in, let's say, high school AP course, AP biology, or just a regular school subject, help with geometry or algebra too. So in one-on-one, we can offer any of those. But today, especially, we're going to talk about, of course, SAT, ACT, and PSAT, specifically for this period, for the next 3.5 months, when the kids have downtime. We are living in unusual times. Uh, so this academic year, kids are going to stay at home. Although there may be some online classes, but they still have a lot of time, like they don't have sports, extracurricular activities. And also the summer, many camps, etc., are getting canceled. A lot of volunteer activities are getting canceled. So how best can we use the time to get a big boost for the kids, especially This is a perfect time for test prep over the next few months. So that's what I'm going to talk about. We started in 2011. We're based in Atlanta, but we are mostly virtual. Most of our activities are virtual, available for students across the country. We do have a couple of centers in Atlanta area, but right now even they went online. Uh, but even otherwise, we are mostly online and virtual. So what are these tests? So first, let me start with SAT and PSAT. So SAT and PSAT are tests. They're conducted by an organization called College Board. By the way, it is the same organization. If you have any high school kids, you might have heard about AP or Advanced Placement Tests. That is the same organization that conducts SAT and PSAT as well. It's almost a 100-year-old program, and it is the primary test mechanism for universities and colleges for the admissions. Obviously, they consider a number of factors, not just SAT or ACT. I'll talk about what are the difference between them and what is PSAT. I'll talk about those differences in a minute. But the SAT is the first one that started almost 100 years back, and most universities and the colleges use that as one of the key parameters for college admission process. And the college admission process by itself is a whole different animal. By the way, we do offer that as well for those if you've got high school kids in 11th, 12th, or even sometimes 10th or 9th grades to help build their resume. We have a separate offering. I'm not going to talk much about it today, but if you're interested, just email us and we'll be happy to help you with that separately. And PSAT is just a simplified version of SAT. And I will talk about that more about PSAT in a minute as well. So what do these tests comprise of? SAT and PSAT, they both comprise of math and English. And within English, reading and writing. And SAT also has an optional essay. PSAT does not have the essay. SAT does have it, but it is optional. And I'll talk about what really optional means and whether your kid should still take essay or not. We'll talk about that as well. So what the SAT scores look like, and probably most of you are familiar with this popular number 1600. It used to be 2400 until 2016. Now they're only out of 2400. Math, you can get a maximum score of 800. Reading and writing, you get a maximum score of 800. Together, 1600. And until 2016, reading and writing were separate by themselves, 800 each. So that's how it was 2400. In 2016, they combined reading and writing and brought that together to 800. The essay is always separately scored because it is optional, and it has three elements: reading, analysis, and writing. So essay is not exactly writing itself. They give an essay, the student has to analyze it and then write in a specific way they ask, and for each of those aspects there's 8 points each. It adds up to 24, although SAT does not really give the total, so they give 3 separately. And actually the two different people evaluate each of the students' essays. In fact, essay is the only part which is manually graded. Math, reading and writing, everything else is either multiple choice or what they call as grid-in questions. They're like fill in the blank questions, except that you don't fill a blank, you actually fill grid. And so that they can be graded by machines. So essay is the only part that is manually graded by English teachers. And they two of them grade every student's paper. And so they actually give a score between 1 to 4 on each of the parameters. So the two of them, then they're added together. So on a scale, then it will go from 2 to 8 on each parameter. You may get any score between 2 to 8. So that score is always given separately, and you won't hear as much. You probably not heard about 888 as much as 800, because essay is optional. Now, what does it mean to be optional? Should your child take essay? It depends. So if your child is a high school student and primarily writing SAT for the purpose of college admission, my recommendation is write the essay, take essay as well. The reason is some colleges require it, some colleges do not require it. And even within some colleges, it may be required only for certain majors and not other majors. Now, you would not know in advance which all colleges your child might be applying to. That's a whole different process. As I said, the whole college admission and college counseling process is a different one. And we recommend that you apply for at least 6 to 8 colleges, in state, out of state, public, private, etc. And because you don't know in advance, it's better to write that. Just in case you don't want to preclude any colleges or universities or majors just because your child did not write the essay part. So it is recommended that you take it. Any questions on this so far? All right. I see that a couple of you joined just a few minutes back. For those who joined just a few minutes back, I made an announcement at the beginning. Under the chat, please go to the chat, and there is a private chat where there is an option for everyone, then there is an option for you can select anyone. And you select Maths Academy, and please enter your child's grade, name, and your email address. We'll email the presentation at the end of today's session to all those who attended. So please enter your email. I know many of you have registered already and we have your email addresses, but we do not know who joined today and who did not. So please do enter your email address and also your child's grade and name, so that we know which grade ranges are there. Accordingly, I can address those topics. So it looks like everybody's good until this slide. So I'll go to the next one. So how does SAT test looks like? So I'll talk about SAT first, then I'll talk about PSAT. There are two variations of PSAT. I'll talk about in the next slide, and then we'll talk about ACT. So SAT, as I said, has math, reading, and writing. There are actually 4 sections outside of essay being optional. And they always come in the same order. The first one is always reading. There are 52 questions in that, and there's 65 minutes. So average of 75 seconds per minute, a little bit over a minute. So they're always given in the format of passages will be given, different passages from different fields. Some passages will be from science, some from history, some from literature, etc. And then the student has to read that passage, or sometimes multiple passages, or contrasting passages, and then address the question. Some questions will be inference questions. So they would need to think about what the author is saying. What is the main idea? What is argument for, against, etc. And some questions will be more directly in terms of, oh, in this particular paragraph or this particular line number, what is this question, right? So there'll be both types of questions. And by far reading, I find even for very smart kids, reading probably is the hardest one. So in all our classes, we spend quite a bit of time on reading, on tips and tricks, test strategies, and practice on reading. The second section is writing and language, which is mostly grammar, right? They don't ask grammar directly in different ways, but they're mostly testing for grammar knowledge. And there are 44 questions and 35 minutes. And if you see that, there is less than a minute per question. And the reason is actually these questions don't take as much time. In fact, by far, this is probably the easier of the sections. And then the third section is math without a calculator, 20 questions and 25 minutes. And last one is math with calculator, 35 questions and 55 minutes. So in math, you roughly get about 75 seconds per question, a little bit over a minute. And all sections typically start with easier questions first, and they gradually get harder, except reading, because reading passes after passes, right? It's not necessarily structured that way, but all other sections are done that way. And then essay, 50 minutes for the essay. One essay will be given, student need to analyze it and then write in their words in the instruction that are given. And our coaching covers everything: reading, writing, math, without calculator, with calculator, essay, all of it is included. I'll talk more about the classes in the second half of the presentation. And so there'll be a total of 154 questions plus essay, if you choose essay, and 3 hours and 50 minutes, including essay. If you don't take essay, it is 3 hours. Now that is actual test taking time. There will also be breaks between sections. So the actual time the student will be inside will be well over 4 hours. It's a pretty intensive test, and it is a test of endurance as well as test of knowledge and intelligence. Somebody, Nandini, can I get your PayPal? I have to pay ELF. Sorry, that's a private message anyway. So yes, sure, Nandini. Any questions on this course before I go to the next one? Okay, so the PSAT, there are two forms of PSAT. This is probably the most misunderstood part, because everybody heard a little bit about PSAT, pre-SAT, and we get a lot of questions on, okay, should we take SAT, should we take PSAT, etc. So I'll address that square here. There are two forms of PSAT. There's one called just PSAT, also sometimes called NMSQT, National Merit Scholarship. I will tell you why that's the case, why they call it. And then PSAT 8-9 is a slightly different test. So PSAT or NMSQT is typically taken by 10th and 11th graders. And PSAT 8-9 was a relatively recent addition, and it is designed for 8th and 9th graders. Now, those grades are not strictly always enforced. So for example, so SAT, anyone can register. You can go to College Board, anyone can register anytime, and it is offered multiple times a year throughout the year, and you can take it. But PSAT is not like that. PSAT is, both PSAT and PSAT 8-9 are offered only through the schools. You cannot directly register for them. And so PSAT is offered only for high school students. It was primarily meant for 11th graders originally. And for 11th graders, it has an additional purpose for certain scholarships called National Merit Scholarship. That's where the NMSQT came for. That name came because it is also used as an indirect measure for awarding scholarships. So in 11th grade, PSAT has a special significance. And most high schools also offer 10th grade. And that is for the purpose of practice. In 11th grade is also it's for the purpose of practice, additional practice, but it has additional significance. And some high schools also offer it in 9th grade. So it's up to the school. The schools have to register with College Board, and they conduct it within the school. Students cannot students or parents cannot directly register for PSAT, either of the PSATs. You can only take it through the school, and most schools, high schools offer, as I said, for 11th and 10th graders as well. Some offer for 9th graders. PSAT 8-9, on the other hand, is primarily meant for 8th, 9th graders. So some high schools offer it for 9th graders in the high school, and many middle schools offer for 8th graders. It's up to the school. Nobody can force them to do it, but most schools do offer. And if your school doesn't offer, you can always ask them. High schools definitely offer. Middle school, if they don't offer PSAT 8-9, I highly recommend all parents should be advocates. Advocacy is an important thing. All of us are part of this community, participate in the communities, certainly participate with the schools, and be on the parent councils or PSOs organizations, and be part of it. But also, if there's certain things you feel that should be there at the school, it's not there, go and be the advocate. But high schools typically already offer by default. So the PSAT tests pretty much look like the SAT. The PSAT or NMSQT is almost very similar to SAT. The only difference is there are fewer questions, just a little bit fewer questions. In the next slide, I'll explain how many questions in each topic. And hence, math has a maximum score of 760 instead of 800, and reading and writing has a score of 760 as well instead of 800. So the total is only 1520, not 1600. And there is no essay. But the syllabus is exactly the same. If you want to prep for PSAT, and typically it's conducted by most high schools in the month of October. So this is a good time, actually. So if you have students in 9th, 10th, or 11th graders, we're offering classes actually from last week of April through end of July to make the best use of the current time when the students have a little bit more time than usual. And then they can continue to practice in August, September, and then take the PSAT. But the SAT itself, you can take in August or September. Right now, they are canceled because of various reasons, because of current lockdown period. But hopefully by August, they will open up and they can take SAT at schools and PSAT in October. Shri has a question. So by the way, if you're asking any general questions, please type into everyone in the chat instead of private so that everybody can see it. Shri, I will read it for you right now, but if it is your personal details like your email, your child grade or name, please type that into the chat box. And I see that a couple of you just joined. For those who just recently joined, I requested everybody to go to the chat. In the private chat, enter your child's grade, name, and your email address. We'll send you the presentation at the end of it. But any general question that you have, please type directly into the chat box to everyone so that everybody can see the question. Shri's question is, how does the prep for PSAT differ from SAT? How does your coaching differ? If one prepare for SAT, shouldn't they be ready for PSAT? Shri, great question. I will address that. In fact, that is one of the key questions I'm going to address. One is, how is the prep for PSAT different from SAT? Would one help, if preparing for one, help the other one as well? And how does our coaching differ? So maybe let me go and answer that question. So the PSAT, I'll come to PSAT 8-9 in a second. PSAT 8-9 is slightly different, but PSAT itself. And when somebody says PSAT, sometimes they mean just regular PSAT, or sometimes called as PSAT 10 or 11. And sometimes they mean PSAT 8-9. And they have completely different contexts, although they look pretty much similar as tests. The PSAT itself is very, very similar to SAT. It's just a shorter version of SAT. Not too much short, just slightly shorter. And almost all the concepts, and the types of questions are very much similar. So for PSAT, you don't need a separate coaching or separate prep, because SAT coaching is exactly same as PSAT, just a fewer questions. So you don't need a separate prep. So that's your first question, Sri. And so if one prepares for SAT, you prepare for PSAT as well. You don't need a separate coaching for that or separate prep for that. In fact, you don't even if a test papers looks pretty similar, right? Because the syllabus is also the same. But it is slightly different for PSAT 8-9 though. PSAT 8-9 is an even shorter version of PSAT because it's meant for 8th, 9th graders. And so it has fewer questions, obviously. And as you can see, the scores are only 720 plus 720, total 1440, each of 1520. But the important thing is some of the more advanced concepts are taken out for PSAT 8-9 because it's for younger students. Although younger students can take SAT as well, I'll come to that in a minute. That's where I think the PSAT and younger students need to be clarified a little bit. So the PSAT 8-9 in math, for example, it does not have trigonometry or trigonometric ratios. But even in SAT or PSAT, the trigonometry questions that are asked actually are very, very easy. Because it is considered an advanced concept, they ask very basic questions. So it's one of the easiest one to score. So don't be scared. And the other concept is complex numbers. And again, although the name sounds complex, the kind of question that are the syllabus that is there in SAT for complex numbers is very, very simple. And so, but those are not there. But even more importantly, the algebra 2, some of the advanced algebra 2 questions, those are the harder ones. And they are excluded in PSAT 8-9. They're included in PSAT, NMSQT, but they are excluded in PSAT 8-9. So the prep for PSAT 8-9 will be slightly different from the SAT or PSAT prep. Does that answer your question, Shri? I'm sure that's an important question for a lot of you. I was planning to address it anyway, but does it make sense? L Bangalore has a question. Can you sign up for the PSAT in 8-9 independently? Or is that also through the school like PSAT? It is also through the school. You cannot, there is one exception for both SAT and PSAT 8-9. I'll come to that in a minute, where you can sign independently. But for most purposes, it is only offered through the schools. You can only do it through the schools. The exception is certain talent identification programs, which is, I think, my next slide. Actually, okay, I'll jump ahead and come back to address that particular question. That is an important question. Oh, okay. No, I won't complicate it. So there's one exception, which is talent identification programs like UTIP. I will talk more about it a little bit later. So for SAT and PSAT 8-9, not PSAT itself, NMSQT, but SAT and PSAT 8-9 can be taken, but for younger students. So the 7th and 8th graders take SAT as an above grade test, and 4th to 6th graders take PSAT 8-9. Although we just loosely call it PSAT, it's really PSAT 8-9. For 4th and 6th graders as above grade test for talent identification programs. And I'll talk more about it in a couple of slides down. Praveen has a question. What is recommended to write SAT? Which grade and by which month? So Praveen, which grade is your child? Because the answer is going to be different whether it is, if your child is in high school, when is it recommended?
Yeah, our child is in grade 10 right now.
Oh, grade 10, okay. Then it's going to grade 10 next academic year or grade 10 this year?
grade 10 this year.
So it's going to 11th grade next year.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you take that question across US, a lot of students take in 11th grade. That is the last, well, technically you can take 12th grade fall. You have a very narrow window, 1 or 2 months. If you're not planning for early admission or early decision, the early action or early decision, you may take in the 12th grade fall, but ideally you should finish by 11th grade. But for students who are advanced, 10th or even 9th grade is totally fine. 10th grade is increasingly becoming more common. 10th grade summer is, of course, next couple of months you will not have this test, but hopefully from August they'll be available again. That's a good time to take, and you can take more than once. Let me address the frequency question, how many times question as well, because I'm sure that question will come by at some point. Ideal will be 2 to 3 times. Although SAT does not stop you from taking any number of times, you can take any number of times as you wish, but my recommendation is 2 or 3. Unless you get a perfect score or the score that you want very first time. If that is the case, just once, right? You don't need to take again. But for most students, it is either 2 or 3 times. 3 max. I wouldn't recommend more than that, although you can take, and the colleges will take the higher of the scores. If you take multiple times, even if you take 6 times, they will still take the higher of the scores. But the colleges also know how many times the student took in high school. Whatever they take in middle school does not count. If you take SAT in 7th or 8th grade for the purpose of UTIP or Johns Hopkins CTUI, etc., they do not count for the number of attempts. But anything that you take in high school, 9th to 12th grades, it does count. But only the highest score is what is considered. Now, some colleges also do something called super score. Some of you might have heard what is about super score. The way super score works is, if you got a really good score in math in one attempt, and you got a better score in the second attempt, you got a slightly less in math, but you got much higher higher, doesn't have to be much, but higher in English. Then those colleges which accept super score will take the higher of the two. That depends on the college though. That is called super score. We should not count too much on it, but by the time you go to 11th, 12th grade, if you know which college you're applying, if they accept super score, that's fine, that's good. If they accept, but typically the score should not drop much from attempt to attempt, unless, right, you got a very good score, you got a 790 in math in first attempt, and then in the second attempt, you spend more time in English, and you got only 780 or 770 in math, and you got whatever highest score in English. I know I'm using that as an example, don't get scared. There is no ideal score. I'm sure that question will come at some point, what is a good score? But there is no good score for all students. Every student is different. It is really maximizing the potential of the student. Obviously, we want to get as high as possible, but hey, every student is different. So somebody, and the college admission is not based on just SAT or ACT score. They also look at their other, how well they write their personal essay. That's hugely important. And there are many other criteria. So all of those come into play as well. But coming back to your question, Praveen, one can take any time. Right now, I would say probably early fall is a good time, just because we're getting a long break, not really break, but relatively quiet period, right? Most students still have online classes from school, but they don't have athletics, they don't have extracurricular activities, they don't have a lot of other things. In the summer, probably there are no summer camps, no volunteer activities. There are a lot of time. So utilize this time, take in the fall. But if you want to, if your student wants to take a little bit later, that is fine too. They can still prepare now, right? And intensively prepare, use this time. And then right before when they want to take it, practice. At that time, because they already know the concept, they know they practice it well enough, they know the test taking strategies, you always need practice. They practice more at that time. And some students may want to take after the intensive prep now, maybe couple of one-on-one private coaching classes as well. We offer that as well. So if, let's say if you take the intensive course now and later down, let's say in want to take the test in March or January or next June or so, month or before that, you obviously want to do a lot of practice tests, and we can help with practice tests if you want at the time. And we can do a few hours of personal coaching, private coaching, that kind of brush up and get them into the gear. I know there's a long answer for Praveen. I know some of these questions will come later. So did I address your question, Praveen? Okay, very good. Any other questions on PSAT versus PSAT 8 and 9? I'll talk about the Duke tip and other ones in a little bit. So how does PSAT and PSAT 8-9 questions on time look like? As I said, they're pretty much similar to SAT. It is the same sections, except there is no essay. The PSAT is 2 hours 45 minutes, slightly lesser time than SAT. It is actually only 15 minutes lesser. If you take away the essay part, essay is 50 minutes, right? All other sections is only 15 minutes less. 2 hours 45 instead of 3 hours. The actual time in the exam hall will be much higher because there will be breaks. It still has 4 sections. I did not break out math without calculator and with calculator, but it still has 2 sections. So reading 47 questions, 60 minutes, writing and language 44 questions, 35 minutes, math 48 questions, 70 minutes, total 139 questions, no essay. PSAT 8-9 is even shorter, but as I said, it's not just shorter. It does not have some of the advanced concepts. And even in reading, for example, it does not have as complex questions as in SAT or PSAT because it's meant for younger students. So it has 42 reading questions, 55 minutes, 40 writing and language or grammar questions, 30 minutes, and 38 math questions, 60 minutes for a total of 2 hours and 25 minutes and 120 questions. So that's how the PSAT tests look like. Any questions on this? If not, ACT. So ACT started a little bit after SAT. If you look at historically, SAT, as I said, has been there almost for a century. And it was the only standardized test accepted by all colleges until I think ACT came in around 60s or 70s. It was introduced by University of Iowa, and it is mostly when it was introduced. So historically, as you know, the most colleges and universities start in either West Coast or East Coast in the United States, and the Midwestern universities came a little bit later, and so ACT most of the Midwestern-based universities were using ACT, but today almost all colleges accept both SAT and ACT equally well. So either one, you can take either one. There is often a question on which one to take. The difference between SAT and ACT, one is the scoring. Let's cover the scoring first. ACT has 4 subjects. The only difference is science. So there's a math, science, reading, and English. And English in ACT is equivalent of the writing and language in SAT. But the science is an additional area. And in each area, you'll be scored on 36, not 800, but 36. And then the total score is not the sum of the scores, but average of the scores. So let's say if you get, let's say you got a 34 in math, 32 in science, 31 in reading, and 35 in English. Your overall score might be whatever 34 or 33. They round it. They take an average and round it, and so it's so when somebody says I got a 35 or 34 or 33, that's what means in ACT. Essay is still optional and separate, just like in SAT, and it is scored of 12 instead of the 24 over there. But it's always given as a separate score. Sapna has a question. Does the college look for how many times PSAT taken? No. The PSA, no information related to PSAT goes to the colleges. I know it came in the private chat. Some of you may not be able to see it, but others you won't be able to see it. So the question Sapna has is, does the college look for how many times PSAT is taken? The answer is no. Only they look at how many times either SAT or ACT is taken. So the other difference between ACT and SAT is that ACT is a little bit more time intensive. There's less time per question. I think that will be a bit obvious from the next slide. So if you look at the slide, right, SAT number of questions and time, in English, there's 75 questions and 45 minutes. In math, there's 60 questions and 60 minutes. In reading, there are 40 questions and 35 minutes. In science, you have 40 questions and 35 minutes as well. As you can see, you have less time per question. So it is more time intensive. But it is also more direct questions. What I mean by that is in SAT, the questions are a little bit more what we call critical thinking. You need to think and answer. Questions are a little bit harder. The ACT questions are more similar to the school questions, but you'll have less time to answer. So it again depends on each student, which one to take depends on each student. We often get the question, which one? If you have that question, we can help look at the specific, your student strengths and weaknesses and can help decide which one to take. Many students in high school take one each and see which one they're better suited for, and then go with whichever one they prepare more for that one. But looking at a student profile, we should be able to tell which one they're better suited as well. Okay. Any questions on this? And by the way, again, the sequence in which they come in ACT is slightly different. It always comes in the same sequence. First English, are the equivalent of writing and language, then math, then reading, and then science, and finally essay. Any questions? All right. How are these scores used? So the primary purpose of SAT and ACT is obviously college admission for high school students. That is the number one purpose. That is actually only purpose which originally it was introduced. Now it's used as an indirect measure for many things else. The second instance where they are used by some for some advanced courses offered by certain high universities for high school students. For example, and this varies. This is often used by local universities for the high schools in that area. So it varies from state to state. In Georgia, for example, Georgia Tech offers certain higher level courses. In math, for example, they offer multivariable calculus and linear algebra, etc. For high school students as a distant learning course. And if your students are good at math and from elementary and middle school, they're maintaining advanced and accelerated math, for example, then high school, they'll be able to take many AP courses. And if you're in AP, for example, math, you have AP calculus and AP statistics. If you finish that by 10th grade, some students do finish it by 10th grade or 11th grade, then what will you take in the 11th or 12th grade? So that's where you can take these courses offered by your local universities, but because there's a lot of demand for it, there's a criteria in which they will take those students. So SAT or ACT are used for that purpose as well. And then the last, and often the most popular one for especially middle schoolers in 7th and 8th graders, they can take SAT as part of Duke Tape or Johns Hopkins CTY, and you cannot directly sign up for this. You can't go to College Board website and sign up for this directly. For this, you have to register through Duke Tape or Johns Hopkins CTY, and then they will let you sign up through their website. And SAT and ACT also have criteria. You have to be 13 years or older to be able to take it. And many 7th graders will not be, and some 8th graders may not be 13 years old yet. But if you are applying through Duke Tape or Johns Hopkins CTY, that age criteria is waived off. But you have to register through them. So there's another question from Raz. It also came privately, so you may not be able to read it. I'll read it for you. Will there be any disadvantage by attempting ACT multiple number of times in terms of admission process? So colleges say no. They don't really look at the number of attempts. They look at only the highest score. But remember, the admission process is very interesting. Every college has admission officers. They're human beings. And they look at, and they receive thousands of these applications. Sometimes tens of thousands of these applications, and there are few of these admission officers. They have to go through your SAT or ACT score, your transcripts, your personal essay. They have to read, and they have to look at your extracurricular activities, volunteer, and decide whether to give admission or not. So you never know for sure exactly how it works. But if there are two students, everything is similar, or somebody just took once or twice, somebody took 6 times, it may play a factor into it. But 2 or 3 times is totally fine. When I'm talking about when you're taking a large number of times, and also it kind of loses seriousness, right? The human student, if it takes so many times, it may not be as serious. So 2 to 3 times is totally fine. Worst case, a 4th time may be okay, but beyond that, not recommended. So any other questions on this slide? Okay, so how are PSAT and how is PSAT and NMSQT used? So as opposed to SAT. So the primary purpose is practice for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. Different high school everybody offers almost all high schools offer for 10th and 11th grades, but some only some offer for 9th grade. 11th grade has a special purpose, that is National Merit Scholarship. And a few other scholarships are also based on that. So 11th grade PSAT is very, very critical. And those are the only 2 purposes for PSAT. The 8, 9, it is not used by Duke Tip or Johns Hopkins CTY. They use for Duke Tip uses 7th and 8th graders SAT, and 4th to 6th graders, which is my next slide, for PSAT 8, 9. But not PSAT itself, or PSAT 10 or NMSQT, whatever you call that, that is not used for talent identification programs. Another question by Praveen. Overall, in a college admission process, what weightage does SAT score carries? Praveen, unfortunately, there is no straight answer for that. It varies from college to college. It might even vary from admission officer to admission officer. Unlike in India, for example, right? If you want to go for engineering or if you want to go for medicine, we got one entrance, and you crack that, you go. You don't need to worry about multiple factors. Here, there is no weightage. Actually, I will correct myself. There is actually no weightage, because they look at multiple factors. If one student has got a slightly lesser SAT score or SAT score, but an outstanding in something else, Like they got a superb personal essay and a great, a unique achievement. That is not very common. Some achievements are very common, but something unique, right? That might get a higher weightage for that student. So they might still call that student. And there is also, by the way, factor called diversity, which unfortunately at this time, when I say at this time, not just like this year, this decade and probably next few decades, uh, works a little bit against. I know majority of those who joined here are of Indian origin. For Asians and Indians, there's a slightly higher bar. In fact, I believe there's a class action suit filed against certain universities against that. But the basis is that all colleges want diversity. Nobody wants 60% of the class from just one ethnic background. So sometimes but nobody admits it openly, but it is a fact. But the point is that there is no weightage, it varies. So if you got I have known students who got a perfect score and did not get an admission. And in the same college, same year, somebody who did not get a perfect score, slightly lower score, got admission. That's because of other factors. And the other factors also do not have a standard weightage. The weightage is very fluid. It all depends on how, if you want to balance, you want to make sure that if your SAT score is slightly less, that you got something else outstanding. Or your others are not as strong, your SAT score. So it kind of, so they do not give a fixed weightage for anything. They want to take, and it also varies from year to year. They also have athletics quotas. So a particular year, a particular university needs, a particular type of athletes, and you fit into that. You're going to athletic quota, even if you have everything else, you might be taken. But those are exceptions, of course. Okay, Praveen, so sorry, I don't have a straight answer for that. That is because there is no straight answer for it. So PSAT 8-9, primary purpose is practice for middle school, 8th or 9th graders offered at the school. But the most common one is actually next two. There are two others. One is the talent identification programs such as Duke Tape. They give it to 4th to 6th graders as above grade test. I see the technically it is 4th to 6th graders. 4th graders, probably it's a little bit harder. I've seen more 5th and 6th graders than 4th graders. But it is allowed for very advanced 4th graders as well. They can take PSAT 8-9 and for Duke Tip qualification. So first of all, there is a pre-qualification. So if you want to sign up for that, just Google for Duke Tip, either Duke Tip 4th, 6th or Duke Tip 7th, 8th, depending on your student grade. And a website comes up. You would need to register, enroll the student first in Duke Tip website. And there is a pre-qualification. Each state has different, like most school standardized tests. Scores are accepted. They have to be in certain percentile, 95 percentile or 99 percentile or something. And most of your students should be eligible for that. And once you are eligible, pre-qualified, then you can sign up for either SAT for 7th, 8th graders or PSAT 8-9 for 4th, 6th graders. Some schools send invitation letters to parents. They mail it home or through the students. Some schools don't. You do not require an invitation from the school. Anybody can go and sign up on the website as long as you pre-qualify based on the standardized test scores, and most of your students should be fine. And a third purpose for PSAT 8-9 and sometimes SAT as well. Certain high schools take admission to the certain private and magnet high schools, take their admission based on PSAT 8-9 in the 8th grade or 7th grade taken at their middle school. In these places, the middle schools administer this, and that, for example, in Georgia, there's one of the counties is Cobb County. In Cobb County, the local magnet schools actually, all the middle schools offer this in that area, and all the magnet and private schools actually take students based on the PSAT 8-9 score. So that is the third purpose. So PSAT 8-9 has multiple uses. Any questions? So at this point, or the time, I know I took 1 hour, but some of you may have to drop off. In case you drop off, you can, we're doing live streaming. I think I have not tested, but I think it is working. On YouTube, you can check. You can hear the rest of the presentation. And but if you can stay for a few more minutes, I'll talk about our specific courses, especially about SAT, ACT. This slide, it talks about our other courses. So if you have any younger students, or even if you have a middle schooler or elementary schooler, we also have courses in math, ELA, reading and writing, public speaking, spelling, science, coding, and we have one-on-one courses in any of the subject areas. And so if you are interested in any of them, you can email them or just fill our registration link on the website. So that just took 1 minute. So what is our coaching methodology for SAT, ACT, PSAT, and even for other subjects? One, we cover all these subject areas and the concepts required in either SAT or ACT or PSAT. In SAT, for example, we do math, reading, writing, and essay. Or ACT, we'll do math, science, reading and writing, and essay. Similarly, in PSAT, we will not do essay, but we'll do math, reading, and writing. So whatever that comes in the test, all of them will cover. We will cover them by helping the students with the concepts. We provide the test strategies, tips, and test taking, and how to handle multiple choice questions, grading questions, how to manage time, etc. Practice. We have the students practice. Some practice during the class itself, but a lot of practice as a homework after the class. Sometimes we give full tests. A full test takes 4 hours. Obviously, we can't do it in the class, and we don't want to waste the class time taking the test. So the tests have to be taken outside the class. And sometimes we just do certain sections as homework, and then we review them in the next class. So that is the coaching methodology that we follow. It's we balance between the concept, practice, test strategies, and a lot of practice with the full test as well as sections. Who are our coaches? So personally, what I found for especially for test prep, but in many other areas as well, the best coaches are the ones who themselves took that particular test and aced it a few years back. They got a perfect score in that particular test. And so the ideal ones are those who are currently in undergrad at Ivy League schools. They actually aced the test in their high school times, and they have been coaching other students over the years, and successfully at that. Those are, I found, the best coaches, much more than adult coaches, because the reason is they're able to connect very well. They're obviously highly motivated, otherwise they wouldn't have got into those colleges or got that kind of scores. The motivation is extremely important. It's not just enough to know the concepts. You got to be motivated and passionate about what you're doing. And being passionate is a very important criteria. I personally select all our coaches, and we go through a rigorous process to select our coaches. But equally important, I found that these coaches are best not just in concepts, but emotionally connecting with the high school students. That's extremely important. They understand emotionally what it means to take a test like an SAT or ACT or PSAT. It is not just a test of intelligence or knowledge. It is an emotionally enduring test, draining test sometimes. And so you need to connect with the student at that level. In fact, anybody who coaches SAT or ACT, and I coach when I get time to, sometimes nowadays I don't, but I take SAT myself. And in fact, anybody can take. So might be surprised. Oh, can you take it? Anybody can take the test. In fact, you can go and take if you would like. You are allowed to take. There is no, obviously you not for college admission process, but just to really understand what the test is. It is not enough to know the concepts or even the test strategies, but really live through it. Then only we can connect with the students and help them get to those levels. Schedules. So all the schedules are on the website. I'm going to open that in a minute. The classes are twice a week, bi-weekly, and for SAT and ACT is 2 hours per session. So 2 sessions of 2 hours per week. That is 4 hours per week over 12 weeks period. That's about 48 hours of classroom instructions, not counting the homework and practice that the students have to do outside, and 1.5 hours per session for PSAT. Classes are starting from a week from Monday, April 27th week, and no, this is, I think, schedule-wise, this is a perfect time. In this year, it presented itself. I know it is very hard to sit at home for months. There were many, the economy took a huge drubbing. Many people got impacted by the jobs. But for students, this is a unique opportunity to utilize it for the next 3 to 4 months to get a big boost to the test prep. Fees, the general fees for SAT, ACT are pretty expensive. Typically, group classes are like a $40 per hour, and one-on-one classes anywhere from $50, $60 to $100 or more per hour. But because of the current situation, we are all classes, SAT, ACT, PSAT in particular, but we also have all other classes, we are doing highly discounted fees. It comes to about $22.5 per hour. For a 48-hour SAT or PSAT, I think it is 1,080. Let me open the website so that you can see all the fees and the schedule. There is a question. I'll come back to that question in a minute. Some of you may have to drop off, so let me open that first. Okay, so this is the website. If you go to our website, mathsacademy.com, and many of you, I think, already went while registering, but if you did not, go to mathsacademy.com. First. So this is our homepage, and the first link over there is Maths Academy classes. And if you click on that, it opens this one. And this is, by the way, our blog as well. We post a lot of other information. When you go to click on our main menu and go to the blog, you'll find all other blog articles. So fees for each class, this entire course fee for that whole duration. SAT, usually for these many hours, it is $14.40 that we have, which is itself is cheaper than most other places. And we do really small group classes. So sometimes I've seen some parents saying that, oh, I have this local institution that they offer cheaper. And ask them how many students will be there. We cap for SAT, ACT, PSAT classes about 5 students. And those who offer cheaper, you're talking about 10, 15, 20 students, and you will not get the same personal attention. And we consider personal attention and interactivity extremely important. So we keep small group sizes. If you prefer individual classes, we have those as one-on-one classes. Those will be obviously a little bit higher, but still lower than most other places. For PSAT, it is $800 for the entire course. And the schedules are here. And in addition to the schedule that are published, I think we would have to open some additional batches, and those we might do at additional different schedules. So if your schedule doesn't work with the published schedule, please get in touch with us. If you are already talking to either one of our staff, either Sridevi, Ramya, or some of you are talking to me, we can work with you on the schedule because we are likely to open up with additional schedules. Raz has another question. Do we have option of taking the classes based on our choice, like reading, science, etc.? So, Raz, if you want one-on-one classes, absolutely you can take anything. We can offer anything under uh, separately. If it is group classes, it depends. So, for example, we got some inquiries where some students want only SAT English because they already got a perfect score in SAT Math and they don't want coaching there. They just want SAT English. So we are actually planning to open one SAT English class separately. Similarly, if we have at least 3 to 5 students, we'll open a separate batch for just for that. SAT English is the only one which currently we got confirmation. But if you have enough students, or if you have any friends who also want that, by the way, if you know anybody else who is interested, please do refer us. And I'm open to do other additional webinars if anybody wants more information, or we can talk just in person. We do have referral fees as well. If you refer anyone else who joins, we provide the referral discounts for on the fee. Another question, do you recommend taking this course if my daughter's ACT test is on July 18th? Yeah, I think we will be done by around that period. So there's a 12-week starting April last week. So I think that's the perfect timing. Another question from Praveen, do you have teacher's profile posted online also? No, Praveen, they're not posted online, but depending on which course you are taking, and because we are going to have multiple batches, we'll have probably multiple courses. So we'll provide you the details. They're not posted. It depends on the course and depends on even sometimes even if you have multiple SAT batches for the matter. So, but all of them, one thing in common, they are themselves perfect scorers in that particular test, and they have been successfully coaching other students, and they're passionate and motivated about it, and they're obviously got admission to highly prestigious colleges. But yeah, once we work out the specific details, I can provide you the specific teacher's profile for your student. Right, any other questions? So now we went over a little bit. I think it is 5:15 Eastern time. SK has a question. Is it too early to take PSAT for current 8th grader? For PSAT itself, well, you cannot take because PSAT is offered only at high schools by high schools. PSAT 8-9 is possible, but that again is through the school. But for are they finishing 8th grade this year, SK, or is it for 8th grade next academic year? For 8th grade next academic year, this is actually perfect time because it will be taken during the 8th grade next year. But if they're already in 8th grade, no, I think then not PSAT 8-9. You can prep for PSAT, and your school most likely will offer in the 9th grade next year in October. So PSAT is always done in October. So so you can't take it now. They have to take it in October, but they can prep now and take it in October. Malini has a question. Do you recommend using your PSAT for a 7th grader in a gifted program? Is it too early? So Malini, if it is for 7th grader and if it is for duty purpose, they would have to take SAT, not PSAT. If it is a 6th grader, because the Duke tape or Johns Hopkins CTY, so you take through them, not directly. And for that, you would need a 7th grader or 8th grader would need to take SAT. And PSAT is pretty much similar, as I said. So it is not too early. It depends on the student though. It is not for all students. It is for those who are obviously advanced and doing very well. Yeah, no, for PSAT prep, it is not too early. I would say you take PSAT prep now and then take the PSAT in October. Then Sapna, my daughter is rising 9th grader. I think school offer in 10th grade. Yeah, it depends on the school. Most schools offer 9th grade. Some schools do offer only 10th and 11th grade. Maybe you need to check with the school, Sapna. Banu, do you recommend SAT or PSAT coaching for current 8th grader? For current 8th grader, meaning going to 9th grade next year, I would recommend SAT. Because for PSAT itself, there is no separate coaching. PSAT 8-9, we have separate coaching. But I wouldn't recommend PSAT 8-9 for current 8th grader, especially if they're good at math and English. If they're not as strong, probably PSAT 8-9. Sapna, what do I recommend for a 10th grade? The 9th grade. Sapna, check with the school. Most schools offer for 9th graders as well. PSAT. Which state are you from, Sapna? Virginia. Check with the school if they offer PSAT during the 9th grade. Otherwise, rising 9th grader, some 9th graders take SAT in high school in 9th grade, but not everyone. If they're already really good in math and English, they can try. Otherwise, PSAT is recommended. Srividya, when are you eligible to get a scholarship by taking PSAT? Is it only 11th grade or 9th or 9th or 11th? The NMSQT scholarship is only for 11th grade. 9th and 10th grades are really for practice purpose only, for PSAT. SAT, if you're really good, you can take any time, one time. You can take 9th or 10th grade, and if you get a good score, you don't need to take again. But PSAT for scholarship is the 11th grade only. Do you recommend SAT or PSAT coaching? Oh, I think we already addressed that question. Sapna, so should my daughter take coaching now since she has time? Yes, she can still take. What I usually recommend for those who are not going to take test immediately is, because of the current opportunity to attend the test, we have many students who who prep now, and right before, about a month before the test, maybe take a few private classes to brush up. And by the time probably they're strength, right? They're, after a year if they're taking, and obviously practice a lot at the time and take a few private classes. So they can still take the intensive coaching now, and then a year later, a month or so before the test, take a few private classes and practice a lot and then take the test. Haren has a question. I'm finishing 8th grade. If I take PSAT prep now, will this help for NMSQT in 10th grade? So you're finishing 8th grade. Haren, first thing, check if your school offers PSAT in the 9th grade. Most schools do. For example, our local schools do. My daughter is in 9th grade. She actually took in her high school this year. But if your school does not offer in the 9th grade, you can take next year. I think I was just answering that for Sapna as well. You can take the PSAT prep now, and before the actual test in 10th grade, you take a lot. You already know the concepts and the test strategies, etc. You just prep a little bit more at the time, practice a lot, and if required, maybe a couple of private classes. What are Duke Tip and Johns Hopkins programs that you mentioned? Is it for middle schoolers only or high schoolers as well? So they're mainly for middle schoolers and some 4th, 5th graders, not so much for high schoolers. So they're called talent identification programs, where they help identify talented students early on and provide the high school level courses in middle school and late elementary, like 4th and 5th. If your child is already in high school, probably they're going to be pretty busy. And so typically high school students end up focusing a lot just on their SAT, ACT, or the school. They will not have time for, except for a few handful who are like, already very advanced into like math competitions or science olympiads, etc. The typical what I've seen is they're very, very busy with their school and test prep. So usually these talent identification programs are meant for middle and elementary school students. Srividya has another question. When are you eligible to get a scholarship by taking PSAT? Yeah, it's only 11th grade. The scholarship actually is given during the college. The scholarship is not given in 11th or 12th grade, but the eligibility is based on the 11th grade PSAT. They do offer, Sapna, they do offer the PSAT in 10th grade, and some, as I said, will offer in 9th grade as well, but that doesn't qualify for the scholarship. Yes, SK, all the timings are listed in EST. I think, I know I will scroll down. If you scroll up, it is mentioned over there. All below, all times are in EST. Another question, is ACT prep helpful for PSAT NMSQT, or is the study strategy completely different? It is quite different. I wouldn't say completely different. Reading, for example, there are many things common, although ACT is actually more time intensive or more time constrained. Types of questions sometimes are slightly different. There are many commonalities, but there are a few things that are different as well. But typically a student who prepares really well for one will improve on the other as well. Probably not by as much percentage in the other one, because, and then they need to go through the test strategies and type of question, right? But it does help indirectly. Because there are some many commonalities, especially in reading and writing. There are many commonalities, even in math, but math types of questions sometimes are slightly different. In SAT, for example, there are a little bit more critical thinking questions, etc. Okay, anyone else, if you have not, those especially joined later, I requested everybody to, in the private chat, where you just select Maths Academy in the to field and enter your child's grade, name, and your email address. We will send the presentation, email the presentation to all those who attended and who gave the email address. So please do enter your at least email address and name in the private chat, if you haven't already. I think most of you already did, but if you joined late and did not hear my comment, please do enter now. Malini has another question. Would a 7th grader in advanced math be able to cope with your PSAT prep classes, which will target more older kids? If they're in advanced math, or if they're generally advanced, Malini, definitely. We have many 7th graders who take not just PSAT, SAT. If they're going for Duke Tip, actually they take SAT. It depends on the student, so I cannot give a blanket answer, but for most students, if they're in advanced and if they're good at math and English, they should be able to take. Somebody is asking for phone number. I will type it here. My number, you can call me on 209-862-8487. Want to talk to me? Or you can call our 1-800 number 833 for Maths, or 8334628487. Goes to Ramya, Sridevi. They can help you with most of the questions, especially related to schedules and confirming your students' registration, etc. Or you can email us. My email is ram@mathsacademy.com, which probably many of you have my email, might have received my email. You can reach out to Sridevi at sridevi@mathsacademy.com. If you have more procedural questions, Sridevi can help, or Ramya. If you have any questions related to classes, how do you get registered, how do you confirm, etc., you can reach out to Sridevi or Ramya, typing all of our email addresses and numbers. Okay, any other questions? None, that's great. It's a pleasure talking to me. Every time I talk, I learn a lot about uh, what students go through. Your questions uh, help me stay honest and stay sharp. It is a pleasure talking to you, and hope to talk to each of you soon. And yeah, if you have any questions, email us or text us, and we'll help you get started with the classes. How early can you take ACT? So SK, 7th and 8th graders, as I said, for Duke Tip, can take either SAT or ACT. So the earliest is 7th grade. Again, not for everyone, those who are advanced. For high school purpose, obviously 9th or 10th grade or 11th grade. But for Duke Tip or other talent identification, you can take as soon as 7th grade. You're welcome. All right. Bye, everyone, and hope to talk to you soon, especially if you are looking for a specific course, SAT, ACT, or PSAT, schedule information, etc. All of us are available to help with that. With that, we close today's session, and bye, everyone, and have a good rest of the weekend.